Hello, welcome to Shows What You Know, your one-stop shop for all your favorite TV show discussions. You are in the right place to discuss The Handmaid's Tale. I am Jim Scampoli.
I am Jacob Burrows, and I couldn't find a white thing to wear. I have a red shirt, but I'm just gonna go with this toilet paper. It's pretty much good enough. It's pretty much white, so I think we got it covered. I think I'm a handmaid now. I think that's how it works.
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Some visual comedy here on this podcast.
I can't see it. I'm sure it's great.
It is fantastic.
Just need some...
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Nah, just saying, I'm being hilarious over here. It's an old trick. Never been done before, though. Toilet paper on the old head. Oh, yeah, the views. I see them coming in. Yes, if you're watching this only on audio, we do a video podcast on our YouTube. You can leave comments wherever you'd like and contribute with your opinions. And this week, we're talking about The Handmaid's Tale. We'd like to talk about it with you, so please do send in your opinions. We're going to get to a feedback section a little bit later, but first, we're going to have a spoiler-free discussion. Me and Jim see what we think about season 1 of The Handmaid's Tale, more or less.
Yes.
Yes.
You want me to start?
Yeah, I want you to say also that we are discussing the details of episodes 1 through 7, which are all that are out right as we're recording this.
Correct. Spoiler free at first. I think this is a great show. Oh
Yay!
My God. Can you imagine that I like a show? Can you guys even fathom the fact that I'm enjoying a show?
Yeah.
But yes, I think it's very good. It's obviously very heavy stuff. I mean, I guess it's not really a downside. It's just if you're the type of person that doesn't want to watch some kind of, it's pretty heavy, it can be pretty heavy and depressing. That's the only warning I'll give you.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I feel like it's got a great cast. It's really well made. And even though I love the fact that it's such a hard thing to do, and this show I feel has been doing it really well. Like I said, is that it's heavy and depressing, but they're able to weirdly have like a sense of humor on the show. Not that it's like a laugh a minute, but they can have these moments of levity or, I guess, kind of winking a little bit at the audience, and it helps. It helps because it could fall off a cliff of depressing and dour and seriousness, like a show like what was that Hardy show that we watched? When he had sex with his sister or whatever. Oh, Taboo.
I was seriously like, well, which one still, though?
Yeah, not.
They're saying sex with his sister. I'm like, but wait, yeah, Taboo.
Yeah, and
that
not even
got pretty serious.
Yeah, and not even that they're that similar subject matter, because Taboo dealt sometimes with maybe magic, but it took itself. I mean, not that this show doesn't take itself serious, but it just adds a little bit, like whether it be weird music cues and just kind of seeing, even though these characters are going through horrible things, these little moments of like togetherness, it just helps it. It's hard to explain. We'll get into it a little bit more in spoilers, I'm sure. But yeah, I was kind of, I was, not that I was dreading this show, but I was kind of like, I'm not sure how this is going to go about, but I'm digging it.
Yeah, great. My opening thought is about the pilot, where I feel like we've seen a lot of pilots lately that have a lot of potential, and we're super wary, and we're like, what's gonna happen here? But I realized, looking back on it, that my very favorite shows, they rarely have a pilot that's like grabbed me instantly, that was amazing. Like, looking back, they were pretty good pilots, but the quality of a TV show really depends on how well you're able to develop and build the things that you lay into motion. So a great pilot can only get you so far, and that's a long way of saying that I watched the first episode and I wasn't like super sold on it. I thought it was good. I thought, hey, I should probably watch more of this, but I wasn't like, fuck yeah, give me the next one. But now that we're 7 episodes in, it's done a remarkably good job of building and keeping things interesting, to me at least. And I'm like so on board as well. So yes, it's nice to talk about a show we like, right?
Yes. Yeah, and I do agree with that. It's not like the pilot was some, mind fuck like oh my God, where's this show gonna go? I can't believe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I it wasn't kind of till probably the end of episode 2 where I was like more like feeling I was like, holy shit, I'm kind of on board with this show. Just yeah, it took till then. And not that this show is as trying to be mind-bendy as, say, something like Legion or even something like American Gods.
Yeah.
But this show still is, they're holding back information and things are slowly developing between how it works with where the characters are at now and how they got there. So it's not like a traditional narrative, but it's not trying to be like, hey, fuck you, and whatever you want, because we got crazy visuals, like some other shows I've been watching recently. So it kind of made me feel good where I was like, all right, hey, there are shows that can do this, that can just it like drop you in the world and let you figure it out as things happen without being like, hey, fuck yourself, you're not supposed to know what's going on. You're supposed to be... I got a case of the spostas. You're supposed to be all confused the whole time and just marveling at our photography skills.
Yeah, I agree. They're really doing it well the way they're putting in pieces of the world. And as someone who reads and watches a lot of speculative fiction, let's say, that doesn't necessarily like, oh wow, they're able to do that. But I've seen a lot of failures recently, too. So I agree. It's like, you don't have to be confused all the time. It's actually intriguing for real. And they drop little bits of information in, and it's actually done well. Like, they're not dumping information on you, but they're also not stringing you along forever.
Yes.
And another note is that they're doing a lot of jumping around with the timelines, which I would usually hate. But again, they just do it well. So it proves that I don't actually hate that. I just hate the way people usually botch it.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the basic conceit of the show, if you don't know, I mean, it's kind of a near, like, not too far in the future of the U.S. is now what, Gilead? Is that what they were calling it? It's basically, we've reached our fall, and it has to do with, hey, we destroyed the planet, we've done all these bad things, and now women aren't having babies, or at least most women. And so what does that mean? It means we turn to the Bible, and we, become really strict and conservative, and we start to round up fertile women and use them for our, not for pleasure, to make babies. Serve them up to the rich, let them plant their seed and repopulate the world.
Yep. Makes sense when you say it like that.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah. And it's remarkable how that's such an absurd thing that could not work very easily. I know we keep saying this, but it could be really easy to mess that up. Yeah. But even like when we see hints of how it came about, the things from before, and then moving back and forth and figuring it out, it all feels believable as it could be. Like, I know there's a level of you that's like, that wouldn't happen in 3 years, but then you look at history and you're like, oh yeah, it actually probably would happen. Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely there is some weird realism of like, with a few things falling in line and maybe some time, you could see something similar. I mean, it's dramatic TV show, book, or whatever, so it's definitely like a little cynical, but also a realistic, cynical way, like for extremes anyways. I mean, because I don't like the people that are pointing to this show and they're like, yeah, see, this is what Trump's America is going to bring. Like, there are a lot of people that already have decided that this is our, like, a documentary peek at the future of what we have. And don't get me wrong, I do understand that, with certain levels of, say, toxic masculinity and misogyny and power, how things like this can come about. But clearly, I mean, the main thing is that it's just fiction teaching us about those things with fantastic elements. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I have thought a lot, because they do, when they have some of the things from like flashing back to how things were And even when they're showing some of the protests and then some of the reactions to that, it's hard not to look at real world stuff and compare it to that. My only pet peeve, though, is how people, like I said, people that always turn to fiction for their politics, like the people that are,
guess we elected Voldemort again.
Exactly. Yeah, pulling the Harry Potter. Like, some of these people that have this, it's almost like they want, like, even though it's such a terrible view of what things could be, it's almost like they kind of want it. So they're like, see, this is what things are. But yeah, I mean, it's hard not to compare it to current events, but I just get wary of being like, this is the path we're on. Here's where we're going, everybody.
I did read an interview. No, not an interview. It was an article written by Margaret Atwood, who wrote the original novel, which came out in the 80s.
Yep.
And the article was titled like, Margaret Atwood speaks on The Handmaid and its relevance to Trump's America.
Of course.
And I read it.
Course.
She doesn't mention it. That's what they decided to do the headline as. She does talk about present day, of course, and stuff like that. Doesn't bring up President of the United States as much, but yeah, that was an interesting one to read because it showed more of the background of when it was written, that she was living in West Berlin, and like you could hear the gunshots from East Berlin pretty much.
Wow.
And she visited a lot of countries behind the Iron Curtain and sort of picked up on nuances of how people communicate, where you can't say things out loud, or you can't and also how society changes extremely quickly into something weird, and how, tyranny can affect a culture. And that's something that she definitely brought into the book. Not that either of us read the book, but just from watching the show.
I feel like if you want to pull a real world thing from this show, I think that's probably one of the things it nails so well, is that things could seem so normal, and then very quickly, like before you have time to react, because it's so easy to watch this show and be like, what are you doing? Get out of there. Pack up your whole life and then just go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Because in real life, you'll just be thinking like, shit, man, things are fucked. But hey, things have been fucked before, but we're going to get through this. But then next thing you know, the whole infrastructure and love is gone, and now you're stuck. Yeah. So, I mean, that definitely feels very real and true. And I mean, I don't want to really get political on this, but I get you should have the discussion as far as comparing it to Trump's America, but you should also have the discussion, if you're going to do that, you could compare things in this show that actually are happening in certain places. Like, not to be blue, but clits getting cut off and gays being hung.
Sure.
That is happening that is happening today in places. So you can have that discussion as well.
Slightly blue, yes.
Yeah. I didn't know the medical term for it.
Sure. Female circumcision.
Yes, there you go.
Doesn't really I like your description better. It's actually more accurate. So yes. I saw some articles like that too, but it's not quite as hot. It's kind of hot, but it's not quite. But it's a strange world we find ourselves in episode 1, and yet the pieces that show how we got there kind of add up and make sense. And it's sort of they intentionally make it jarring when you move from the past to the present, when they're always like cutting on some just cutting from sound to silence, like some music's playing and then like someone puts a cup down and then it's the present, and then the whole color changes. They do a lot of work with color in this. I feel like the use of color in The Handmaid's Tale is a Nerd Writer 1 video waiting to happen. Someone's going to make that video, I say. It should be us, Jim. I'm just saying.
It should be us, yeah.
Should get on it, because actually just looking it up, I wanted to see, had someone done it already? I found like lots of notes on the use of color in the novel, and it's actually still pretty relevant.
Oh, wow.
Because, of course, the handmaids are only allowed to wear red, which is, the female reproduction, menstrual blood, stuff like that. But it also makes them really pop. Like, visually, it also works. Not only in the novel. Here, it actually works because they look so different than everything else in the show. There's nothing red in, like, present-day Gilead, right?
Yeah, Except no. And everything is pretty muted and drab. So they do really stick out in the shots or in the frame or what have you.
Yeah.
One question I wanted to ask before we get into spoilers. Now, does it just seem like we're seeing more post-apocalyptic stuff, or is it just kind of our want to? I mean, I think it's always been a human thing where we want to think like the world's gonna end when we're alive or whatever.
Yeah.
I think Chuck Palahniuk has like a quote on that, like we all want to be the last generation or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, I mean, not so much that we're seeing more of it, but like, I guess more mainstream. And I know like the obvious other one is the Hunger Games and a lot of these like YA novels that are all about like the end of the world and being the last generation or what have you.
Yeah.
But is it just, well, I mean, obviously we're dealing with a lot of real world shit that makes people scared and whatever, but is it more or does it just seem like more because it's the combination of real world and fantasy?
I think that's a good question. That's another video essay waiting to happen, really, because I have the same feeling that there's more, but I think it might be this thing one always hears with crime that like, oh, it seems like crime is going up, but we just see more reporting on it. Uh-huh. It actually is going down. But yeah, I don't know, because when you say like recently, hasn't it been for like 20 years almost, been even more, but it was like zombie movies before then. And
yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I think you're right. I mean, there's a point to it, especially with dystopia definitely became the thing within young adult fiction, which drives a lot of fiction now.
Yeah.
So I think that's a relevant point. I would like to look at some actual numbers, but just socially as part of the consciousness, it's definitely more at the forefront these days.
Yeah, and I guess I watching this show, I'm kind of like, guess I'm marveling at the fact that it got made at such a scale because, it was promoted pretty heavily. I mean, well, here anyways, I don't know what like your little farm that you're on, but
didn't see nothing. Just a cow painted red.
They had a commercial during the Super Bowl, I remember, for this show, but it's like it's really heavy and it's some serious shit on this show. It's like we kind of talked about like Legion or whatever, or we were talking about like Game of Thrones and how Game of Thrones, even though that deals with a lot of heavy shit too, but it's like punched into that pop culture mindset of like everyone.
Yeah,
but it's hard. I mean, I guess having the cynical look, thinking like, studios don't care, they don't want real art, but it's just hard to imagine that a company put a lot of money behind a show with like rape and fucking really sad things. And
well, I think they did their research pretty well, because I think this is a hit, right? This is a hit show,
I guess, as far as I know. I don't know as far as how wide the buzz reaches, but I know I've heard a lot about it, and I've seen a lot of advertising for it.
I think I can imagine a lot of people having the same sort of resistance you were describing, because I didn't, about sitting down to watch it, because I didn't necessarily feel this about the actual show, but when it came to the book, I was kind of like, yeah, I'll read it later, maybe. Like, I was like, I feel like I get it, what it's about.
Yeah.
Which is very chauvinistic of me, probably, or something similar. But it's also like, I don't have a clear view of it, but it's kind of like Hulu's flagship, right? They're sink or swim on this one.
Yeah, it's kind of their big one that they're pushing for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I think maybe dealing with this heavy stuff is not to say that it's like baiting for good critics stuff, but they actually did a good show as well, so that's why you can't complain about that.
Very true.
But I think they intentionally didn't want to do like a bland thing, which is very impressive, because there's a lot of stuff that's would even have these things in it, but treat it not as well as this show has so far. So it's, I don't know, Jim, is my answer.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, I was just thinking about it watching it, but I guess, I don't know, anything else for spoiler free?
I think I can give you some listener feedback, which is actually spoiler free.
Excellent. Yes, I'd like to hear this.
Yes, we got an email from our friend Jonathan Newell. If you want to be our friend, you can email us at showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. He writes that this is a great show and probably the best new show in 2017. And he says he hasn't watched as many new shows as us, but it's the number one for him. Now, we've watched more shows, but I think we've been more negative as well. So would you agree that this might be the best new show so far?
Yeah, I get, because I mean, the only other show I was really raving about so far this year is Better Call Saul, but that's, in its third season.
Exactly.
I guess, yeah, for new shows, yeah, I guess I gotta agree.
Me too. He says it's haunting and chilling without much hope for the main character. Very much a cautionary tale. All the performances are great, especially Elizabeth Moss. He also liked Madeline Brewer as Jeanine and said he's seen her in several different shows, and she always seems like a totally different person. And she's probably a rising star. That's the girl who gets her eye plucked out for everyone at home.
She's very good.
Yeah, she's great. I haven't seen her in lots of things, but she's in Orange is the New Black as one of the girls, one of the white girls. She seems very different.
Yeah, the actress that plays Moira is from Orange is the New Black as well.
That's right. So, yeah, he didn't have that much to say because he didn't have much negative to say about the show, Jonathan, but he did ask us, maybe we should have done this after spoilers. He asks how we think the season will end. We'll return to that in the spoiler section, Jonathan.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah. So let's head into our spoiler discussion now and go through some more details and stuff. So from now on, spoilers for episodes 1 through 7.
Spoilers! Spoilers!
Yes, indeed.
Spoilers! Straight ahead! That's from
Indeed.
Titanic.
Okay, great.
I see spoilers. All right, are we done?
Jim, we're done. Should I pick the toilet paper back up? Are we at this level again?
All right, let's reel it in. This is serious business.
Well, it is actually. Yeah, so 7 episodes. I haven't gone through and made super specific notes on all of it. What about you? Where do you want to start?
Yeah. I mean, we don't need to go like super into each episode, but I mean, like we were talking about, the pilot kind of drops you into this world. Like we pick up when what's her name? She's Offred in the future. And then we see Offred and her husband and her kid. They crash a car. They're running away from something. She leaves her husband. He's like, just go, run into the woods. You need to get there. And she hears gunshots in the distance, and then she gets taken by armed guards. They take her and her kid, and then we're dropped into this, sad world she lives in, which... they're in Massachusetts, I believe. They're in Boston or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so we start getting the feel of what's going on. There are Marthas, which from what I glean, they work the house basically. Like they do like the cooking and the cleaning and what have you. Yeah. And then of course there are the handmaids, which Offred is, and they did mention what these names are, but I didn't quite get it. Did you? It was something to do with the family name or something like that?
I didn't get it from the show, but I did look it up, or maybe it was in that Atwood article. But yeah, she was saying that it's the first name of the commander is Fred, so Offred. Oh, that's kind of how it works.
In the episode when the ambassadors come, which is like 6 or 7, he has like a quick line about it. It just I didn't quite catch what he was saying, but okay, that makes sense. So yeah, we kind of get into the vibe of the show because we're seeing what is present day for the characters and how their culture works. The handmaids travel in 2, and it's kind of like to keep them on their toes in a way because you don't know, like, this could be someone who's on your same mindset. Or it just could be someone that maybe wants to look for some brownie points, and if you do something weird, they're gonna, rat you out. So it's this weird, like, they kind of have this bond because they're going through this terrible thing, but then you never know because it's like, hey, I'm looking out for me. I don't care about you. Yeah. And so they have to go do the shopping. They have to, of course, lay between the wife's legs while the husband has sex with them. Of course, this is what they have to do. Mm-hmm. Everything's done in a very, I guess it's kind of, is it Christian? It's Christian, right?
Yeah, it's their own sort of cult of Christianity.
Yeah. And I like that we're just dropped in. So we see these things like blessed be the eye or like blessed is the day, like these lame ass church things that I remember when I used to go to church. Yeah, there would be these moments where everyone knew what to do. But as a kid, you just kind of roll with it, because there'd be this part where everyone stands up and they'd turn and be like, may God be with you. And I'm like, all right, yeah, may God be with you. And then sometimes the priest would say something and then everyone would say something back, but like they don't explain it to you. So as a kid,
you're like, may the kid open the God. Yes.
So yeah, I mean, they're going, like, we're seeing.
You don't want to be the only kid saying amen when everyone's quiet and everyone looks at you. Oh, we're still going? Okay, sorry.
And yeah, like you said, it is jumping around in timelines, because we're seeing the kind of before everything went down, or like as things were, like the small things that were all building to this. Mm-hmm. Then we're also seeing when she's first in, captivity, as they're getting like fertility class and learning about what their role is going to be. And I mean, clearly there's a class system going on, because it's all being served up to these commanders, which are now like the haves, and everyone else are the have-nots. Mm-hmm. What do you think? What do you think? What do you got to add?
Well, it's a good episode, but as I said, I wasn't like, fuck yeah, more of this.
Sure.
It's a good introduction to the world. I think they play well on the thing of the pairs being there, walking together, keeping an eye on each other, because you don't know. That's how they do it. It starts out like, this fucking piece of shit I have to walk with every day, and then it turns out like, oh, I thought you were the piece of shit. No, I thought you were the piece of shit.
Yeah.
So then they actually start having their little whispered. That's this episode, right? I'm not 100%.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. This is kind of as thing like it gets into the next episode as well, but things are building up.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So we have a lot of people being hung for being, gay or working in an abortion clinic or being Catholic. So sorry, Jim, you're out of there then.
And especially in Massachusetts, man, a lot of Catholics hanging a lot of people.
That explains why they have food for everyone. They're super proud about, hey, we can feed our whole population because we killed half of them. So great job. That's right. Because they go to this field and beat a guy to death for assaulting a handmaid. Yeah,
they use the handmaids as kind of for justice.
Which I thought was great, like a great way to get of the society to get them to like act out their impulses. They give them this one piece where they give someone else to hate, and they did it really believably and well. So that made sense.
Yeah, it's like the Purge, where because clearly these you're dealing with being like a lower class. Don't do what I say, do this, do that. So obviously it's going to build up a lot of bitterness and aggression. And then they're like, hey, this guy's a rapist. What do you think about that? We're going to blow the whistle. And, hey, you just do what feels right. And, they get out all this aggressions. It's just a bunch of women just tearing this guy apart. And, yes, Rory Gilmore, she's great in the show. Who is she again? What's her name? It's Allgarth or something like that.
Offglen.
Offglen, yes. And it's weird because it's like, I mean, obviously, you know her mostly as Rory Gilmore, and I think she popped up on Mad Men and stuff, but she's always kind of looked like this baby-faced white girl. She's got the whole world in front of her. But they do a really good job, because in this show, she's like, she's worn out, she's beat down, and she's not in it a ton, because things happen, but I felt like she did a really good job with this part, and her place in it.
Yeah, and she's the one who made me notice what they're like, or just the amazing stuff they're doing with lighting and color to make their eyes pop, especially because she has great eyes to begin with, and then all the light and the color, and it just looks amazing. And I forgot to say earlier in general that the whole world kind of feels like the Matrix, because everything is kind of green when we're in the present, and sort of muted and green, as you were saying. So that's all well. And the episode does end, I think, where she tells her that there's an eye in her house.
Yes.
And then Offred reveals her real name, June.
Yes.
And her intent now, she's sort of set her goal. I'm going to survive and find my daughter. She's reaffirmed that. Yeah,
and I like how I still don't really have a grasp of like how much of the United States is still like around, because they talk about the colonies a lot and like cleaning up toxic waste or whatever. So I kind of like that. I don't think any of these episodes have kind of told us where we're at or what the map of Gilead actually looks like. Like, are we just dealing with New England? Are we, the East Coast? Where are we at? But I do like that because there's this whole like fear of if you're going to be sent to the colonies and then just your skin peels off as you work till you're dead.
Right. I mean, they do mention that, like, someone says at least that the United States has been reduced to, like, Anchorage, Alaska, so we know that some of the states are hanging
that's
out
right.
there.
Yeah, they did say that's the capital or what have you.
Yeah.
That confused me, though, because it's like Canada is, like, the great place to go. So what, you got to go there? You just going through Canada, just get to the capital? Fuck out of here.
Well, I mean... surely that's like their own territory. I'm not sure Canada would like, yes, come here, and also this is the United States now. They're hospitable, but there's a limit.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we gotta just go get that place.
Yeah.
Take them over.
Might not be in a position to do so.
You know what? I'm with you, Commander. Let's go get them.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I like the details they put in. Like there's mention of a trade embargo, which implies what the rest of the world thinks of what's going on, and then eventually in later episodes we start seeing the Mexico delegation, which I was super excited about seeing, like someone from the outside coming in. And that's also when we start seeing a bit more of the transition and stuff, and things kind of start to make a bit more sense. With the Mexican ambassador, that was in like episode 6. I liked how they did that, because at first I was a little annoyed, and I guess maybe it's just the patriotism in me, where I was like, all right, let's not act like Mexico's so great now. Like, come on. But it was interesting because they did kind of pitch it like that. Like, well, because we're looking at it through Offred's eyes. So it seems like, oh, wow, this must be a great place. They have a woman in power. It's not like here. There must be things going on. But we quickly find out that that's just a pipe dream. Because she bears her soul to them. Like, you need to help me. I'm a slave. I didn't choose this life. I get raped once a month just so I can produce a child. I'm beaten. I'm tortured. But to them, it's like, well, hey, we don't have kids either, so we're liking what they're doing here. We want a piece of this action that's going on. Look, it's not the best, but do you have a better idea? And she's like, how about not this? Yeah, exactly, because there's like, we haven't had a child in this many years, which makes me think even more that this is a Children of Men crossover waiting to happen.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's in a few years.
And I did have some notes. I mean, we'll just be jumping around anyways, because in that episode 6 with the Mexican ambassadors, like the visitors, like I was talking before, like kind of these moments of levity or these like almost moments of normalcy in such like a terrible time and place. Like when what's her name? Mrs. I'm so fucking terrible with names. I'm always just like, that's that actor. I know this character. Yeah. But the commander's wife.
Waterford, Mrs. Waterford?
Waterford, yes. Where she's kind of talking about, like, they're all, you can sense that they're nervous because they get these visitors coming. They want everything to be just nice. And then Offred makes some offhand comment like, oh, red's my color.
Yeah.
And it's like such a dumb little normal line, but it's I don't know, like stuff like that works for me, because you would almost expect where then she's gonna like smack her and be like, get in the hole or whatever. Like in a show that would have to always be beating you over the head how things are. Mm-hmm. But like that weird like realization that even though Offred wants to get out of this, the way the human nature would be is you'd sort of just accept what your life is.
Yeah. And they do a good job of making it interesting to watch how the relationships in the house wax and wane. Like, just seeing how things develop in this house could be unexciting, but actually they make it quite intriguing, because a few episodes before, if she'd said that, it would be, get to your room and by the hair and I pull you back there. But here they're on a slightly better terms, and our main character is also feeling a bit more levity there after... I think, after in episode 5, she has sex with Nick and actually enjoys it and is kind of a bit more spunky. Mm-hmm. No pun intended. I'm sorry. Yes, she has a bit more levity in her, so to speak. So so that's happening there.
The Nick thing I thought was a little weird, because like it before like they have their like real like passionate real sex. She mentions how when they're gonna have their like their own ritual in secret because maybe the commander's shooting blanks, so even the wife just wants to get her pregnant. Let's get this party started. She mentions like this is the only time that it feels like I'm cheating. So like it feels like we were supposed to. I mean, I know there were these moments where they had these like glances, and there was supposed to be this weird unspoken thing. But it wasn't quite as clear to me, but probably because I was like suspicious of everyone watching the first few episodes, or I'm like, there's an eye. It's this guy. I don't trust this dude. But it felt, and this feels like, because this isn't a YA novel, is it?
No.
I didn't think so. But this felt...
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, this felt very YA, because this felt like there needs to be the hunk who's like in the system, but his love for our main character... is makes him like in the gray area. And I mean, it's after they have like their real sex, it comes across more like clearly. I mean, I guess that's obvious. Like, they're even having their little like, touch our hands together. We can hold hands. But it was just weird because it felt like I should have already been on board before that moment.
Sure.
But yeah, it was probably just because I didn't know most of the story. So like I said, I was just suspicious of every single person. And I was like, get the fuck away from Offred. Who the fuck you think you are, bitch?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Jim, have you taken into account the fact that we're both dudes?
Yeah, very true.
Because on YouTube, searching for these video essays I was hoping to find, there were also a fair few of these Riverdale-style cut-together characters in a room with a pop song. And it's like, forbidden love between Nick and June or whatever they call it. So I'm sure there's a name for that ship, for that shit, I should say.
Yeah, and Offred. Or Noon.
Or Off Nick.
Yeah.
It's like he's played as like the third part of the love triangle, but I always feel like it's pretty clear what part of the love triangle is crap, and strange people like it. No offense to everyone who likes strange people, or wherever I'm going with this.
Or Stranger Things.
So it's actually, I mean, I agree with you. I was not also like, fuck yeah, but also it's her one expression of independence. It's her one thing where she can be in control, and we get these flashbacks in that episode to her and Luke getting together, and she wanted to be on top, and she could be on top with Nick, and she has no power in her life.
There's some dominance there.
So it makes sense to me.
And like it does speak to the quality of this show, because when you just say it, it should not work, and it sounds like soap opera bullshit of how like she,
there's also a sexy driver.
She falls in love with the sexy driver hand of the house, and then finds out her husband's still alive. Like it's oh my god, just saying it, I'm like, oh my, I like the show. What? But yeah, it all works. They have that proper balance where it doesn't come off as you would think just reading it or speaking it. One other moment to jump back, like I was talking about, like these weird moments of levity. Well, and before that, I mean, the voiceover works so well because given, I assume this book, you're in her head all the time, very similar to say like the Hunger Games with Katniss, where you can get that sense of who Offred is or who June is when she's talking to us, the audience. And I think they really hit that moment where the like the Breakfast Club song kicks in at the end of episode 2. This is Breakfast Club, right? Yeah, Don't You Forget About Me. And it's like this slow motion, like, I'm the shit. Here we go. We're going to do things. And then she has that moment like, well, then, when I forget Allgrid's name again, what's her name? Offglen. Jesus.
Look, they're combinations of the first name, so that would mean that the commander's name was Gren.
Yeah, that's true.
If yours was Offgren.
Yeah, so it's Offglen. But yeah, she has her kick-ass moment because she had Scrabble. She's going to get some insider information on the commander. She's going to join up with Offglen and get this rebellion going. And it's kicking in the music and the slow-mo, and then she's like, oh, fuck. because, Offglen's gone. Who knows where she's at? But
Yes.
that was kind of that was the big moment that I really kind of sold the show a lot for me, because I liked that combo they were doing with all this heavy stuff, but still kicking it in with like real world, just that music moment. I liked how that all came together.
Yeah. And episode 2 is a lot about the Scrabble and being unsure about that. And Offglen and him or her are talking, which, yeah, exactly. And Jeanine is giving birth finally to that baby, and it's a real baby and everything. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, we get to see their weird ritual of how like the mother of the house pretends that she's in labor as well.
Oh no.
It's so cringy, but like it feels like it feels so much what those people would do, because they want to be part of it so bad. And they feel like that, like, no, of course. I mean, you didn't see me in labor as well? Of course. This is my bond to this child.
Yeah. It ends with Offglen being gone, which then is more central to episode 3. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, we did learn that Offglen's a gender traitor. That's what they call gay people in this world. Exactly. And yeah, her Martha gets hung. And I'm dumb because I knew they did something to her, like, because we finally, Offglen wakes up in the hospital, and I'm like, wait a minute, what did they do? We knew they did something to their vagina, and like an idiot, I didn't think of, circumcision. I was like, oh, they just sewed her vagina up. Like,
that'll work. That'll do the trick, Jim. You should be a doctor.
I was so dumb. But then she's like, you'll still have kids, and I was like, how? It's sewed up. You're not going to have kids.
Clearly, it's sewed up.
I guess they just cut the stitches then. Have the kids sew it back up.
They could just use a chastity belt for that, Jim. That's pretty impressive. Speaking of supposing things, with that in mind, I did want to ask you what you thought about the Martha that got hung. Was it a new flame or was it her wife?
Oh, shit. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, because at first I assumed it was just a new flame, but the way they were holding hands, the way they were connected, I don't know. They didn't murder all the women if they didn't have a reason to, so they probably put her...
Oh, shit. I think you're right. I actually just got fucking goosebumps.
Yeah,
I
that
swear
makes it worse.
Because I'm picturing the scene now. Well, holy shit, wow. Because it's powerful either way, but yeah, I think you're right.
Because I don't know if she would have been... She's part of the resistance. I don't know if she'd been be stupid enough to buy, like, oh, that Martha's got a nice ass. But she might, like... Yeah, if it was her wife, there's an actual connection, and the severing of that is way worse, which leads to what she does later. I think that's probably the case. Although I don't know if they'll explain it. What does happen to her in the end after she drives over that guy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can only assume the worst, but... That moment, it's, like we were talking about with Better Call Saul and Vince Gilligan talking about the delayed, like you want the delayed gratification for the audience.
Yeah.
That was such a moment where I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I
fuck
literally
that,
said
dude.
that too.
I was really like, hell yeah, Emily. Like, because we just learned her name and shit.
Yeah.
And I was so in, like I know it might seem, I know we've been joking about it and I'm like so negative on some shows recently, but when I'm in on a show, like I was so sold. I was such like a fucking like a mark for this show where I was like, hell yeah, Emily, get in that car. But I just wanted her to like drive away to live happily ever after.
Yeah, sure.
But of course there was nowhere to go. And then when she rides over that dude and like his head explodes, I was like, fuck you, you fucking male piece of shit. That's what you get.
True. I only wish she would have like rammed that car and tried to get a few more, but
yeah, for sure. And because this show really does, because there's so much like bleak, dreariness going on, and you're obviously on Offred's side, and you're starting to learn some of the other get familiar with some of the other handmaids, and you really want to root for them. So moments like that really, get you excited. And we do learn in this episode as well. I mean, it's a little off topic, but we learn that some people they're like this is a better life for them than what they had. So they're not ready to run over a dude and like sacrifice it all for that like one moment.
Yeah. Sometimes it's easy to forget that the rest of the world isn't the rest of the world. Everything's falling apart, and that's why this was, makes it more believable that this actually happened.
Yes.
But yeah, okay, so that episode, it's also a lot of her being banished to the room. I mean, the episode 4 is called this Latin phrase, which is "Don't let the buggers get you down, don't let the bastards get you down." Because last episode she was late, and we thought she was pregnant, and I didn't think she was gonna tell Mrs. Waterford, but she told Mrs. Waterford, "I'm not pregnant." So then it was drag her by the hair to the room, and you stay here forever.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad that we didn't go the route of like, kind of sitcom-y, like, well, I'm pregnant.
Where's the pillow?
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably smart. Probably smart.
Yeah. And yeah, so then as she's like locked in the room, she's being beaten down and kind of like almost to the point of giving up. But she has this connection with some writing on the wall, and was it the Handmaid before? And we learn about Moira a bit and how she did similar thing where she was, writing on the bathroom stall to try to give some other girl out there hope. And I mean, it's clear that Moira's probably alive, right?
Because I mean, by this point we've forgotten that they said in episode 1 that she's dead. We've seen her a lot in flashbacks. She's probably alive because she does escape, and we don't really have any reason to think she didn't. Well, I don't know. There's layers.
It's a heartbreaking moment. Like, we learn about her escape, and she's dressed up as an aunt, which are like the religious like marms that like rule over the handmaids. But it's that moment of like, she has to leave her friend because it's like, otherwise they're both screwed. And I do think like Offred probably got off a little light. Yeah, she got her feet they beat the shit out of her feet. But they're cutting other people's arms off. They're poking other people's eyes out and shit.
True. Because just for speaking up, really, they took an eye. So she's kind of got off lucky there. But I love that moment of especially the eye contact they have where Moira doesn't want to go. And June basically tells her with her eyes and her smile, no, you got to go. You got to go. Yeah. And then the moment she steps onto the train, it's like, I mean, we haven't talked much about the acting, but I mean, it's obviously great, especially Elizabeth Moss, where it's like a limb being severed. We can see it, that all her bravery was in Moira and vanished, and that puts her down at the low level she is at the start of the show. So, really great acting, and I love the moment after she's beaten when all the handmaids like, we're all meek and so on, but you tried to escape. One of you got out. So that's why we give you all the food we can possibly steal and help you and like honor you. There's
a bond there, and you still see it with what's one-eyed lady's name again?
Jeanine.
Yeah, with Jeanine, because like especially Offred, she has these outbursts and these things she does, and it's gonna get her fucking killed or something, and they're always trying to reel her in and help her out, even though she's just like a loony, like. Just like a crazy weirdo. Yeah. And then we even see it a little bit with the fucking hateable ass aunt, like the head aunt.
Yeah.
She still has this weird moral code because when all the bruised apples need to be sent away because, the one armed, the one eyed, the scarred on their faces.
Yeah.
Since they need to be presentable for the Mexican ambassadors, you don't want them in the mix. And it's like, this one thing they get to look forward to, but since you're like one of the messed up ones, you can't enjoy it. Even this horrible lady that's like on par with like Joffrey or something. I hate her so much, and I can't wait till she gets like a knife in the eye or something.
Yeah.
But you see that moment where she even agrees, where she's like, yeah, it's not fair, and you should, because she believes her thing is just right. And this is something that's not right in her weird moral fucking center that she has. So I like moments like that, and we get a lot of moments similar with the wife there, where she's just a hateable bitch, but we see kind of her history and that she was a weird domestic feminist, and she had she was like helping this rebellion that didn't cause it, but like caused where they're at now.
Yeah, and
A
she
lot
was
of that stuff's very
a
interesting.
a leading figure in it, and she wrote this book that she's now not allowed to read, as the Mexican ambassador brings up, and she's like, "Hey, the chips fall where they may." Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so satisfied, and I saw some people comment that the last two episodes, 6 and 7, at times felt a bit like it was dragging. They wanted to get back to Offred, but for me, it was not that we needed like a respite away from it, but I really liked 6 and 7, which is when we get out of her head and we get into Waterford's head, and then the last episode, which is the only one we haven't really discussed yet, where we get more into Luke and his head.
I agree.
I like both of those.
Yeah, I agree, because I felt like it didn't feel like, when we were talking about Fargo in episode 3, it felt a little too early to go off-roading a bit.
Yeah.
I felt like this was a pretty good time where we're in with Offred. We got a good grasp of her story. It was a pretty good time to get into Waterford, and we learn a little bit more about these people that are kind of running things now. And it was an interesting take, because I didn't assume that I knew there was something that happened with the US government, but I kind of thought that there was more in the government that did it, but it kind of spells it out more that it was this fringe group that they're a part of, these religious nuts, basically orchestrated this attack and, seized control. Like, they saw this opportunity because things were already getting bad with, children and fertility. So I really liked how that played out, because first it starts out, we see just what weird nuts they are because they're saying prayers as they're about to have sex.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell if that was, more current time or before things happened.
Well, they did let us know. Sometimes it's almost like, I feel like it's heavy the way they make sure to mark things, even though it's well done anyway. But she does say that she has a conference call at whatever o'clock. So then you're like, okay, it's before women can't work, because that was the law. So we know, and they do a good job of it. But sometimes it's like, she only said that, so we would know.
Yeah, I kind of liked it. I kind of liked that I wasn't fully clear at first, but then it became clear that it was, just because it was a weird mixture of what was happening in their current day. And then when they go to the movie, and it's like he keeps talking about business or whatever, so you're just like, oh, he's just a weird business guy. But then it's clear, like, oh no, we're gonna do the attacks just like we planned. And I really liked how that all came about.
Yeah. I like the mood of them sitting there, and everyone else is like, no one knows what the fuck's about to go down, and they're like, we know what's about to go down. Yeah, it was a nice scene. And
it played in nice, because beforehand we did see the flashbacks to when June had her kid Hannah, and it was, she falls asleep and wakes up and her baby's gone, because everyone's going crazy. Like, everyone's going crazy because they can't have a baby. So a lady is like, no, this is my baby, right? This is my baby didn't die. This is my baby. And it was such a scary, small moment that told us so much about how the world was at the time. Yeah. And it tied in nicely, I thought, with what's going on here, because these are people that take it to the extreme, that feel like they're, saving the human race by taking over and setting up this new infrastructure that we have. I thought it was, I really liked all of it. I was fully in for everything.
Yeah. And speaking of everything falling apart, episode 7 feels the most post-apocalyptic out of anyone. Any episode. It's definitely like every gray British post-apocalyptic film, or maybe like The Last of Us, feels kind of like The Last of Us video game. This traveling and trying to get away from, whatever it may be, zombies or whatnot. But it's I really enjoyed it. It was a breath of fresh air for me. Not that I was feeling it was getting stale, but still, it expanded the world. It connected the two big pieces of tissue of the story, and it's called The Other Side. And someone said, it's late in the season to go off and do something different, but I feel like it expands it to the point where we can get to an interesting climax in the next few episodes. What did you think?
I completely agree, because the first like 5 or so episodes, or even episode 6, it was not only like setting up the story of Offred, but like introducing this world and letting us know like how this came about and how things became the way they are. And I feel like episode 7, seeing Luke's point of view, it delivers on basically the promise of those other episodes. We start to see when things really kick into gear. We start to see how they got into the position where, I mean, I guess you could leave it where we just see them trying to run away and they get split up or whatever. But I feel like this episode added a lot, and I was still fully in it. I didn't feel like it was like a waste or going off the path too much. And especially like the stuff where, who can you trust? And you learn a lot about Luke because he's like naive in a way, because he still thinks like, what we got to do in the trunk? And like, it's just a backpack, and I need my photo album. And it's like all things that show that he's a really good guy, but it's like people still don't get what's going on. So I liked all those moments. And then even when they run into that dude with the dog, and it's like really, oh my God, someone knows we're here. And then he shows up and you're like still scared. And he's like, no, don't worry. Like, you got to go. And then I made a note of this line because he just goes, this is pretty fucked up.
Yeah. He's right.
Yes.
It's great. And Luke is kind of naive. I think he's learning here that he can't be acting this way. But it's like what we were talking about in the beginning. When do you, like, Jim, when are you going to leave the country? I know a lot of people tweet about leaving the country, but when are you actually like, actually, I'm going to stop tweeting about that because they closed the borders. So no more information about that. I'm just going to go in a trunk. Yeah. It takes a lot because you're kind of like Luke. You're kind of sitting, I mean, not you specifically, we're all Luke. We're all like, when the bank accounts get frozen, we're like, this fucking bank, you don't know how many fucking issues I've had with this bank. It's not the bank, it's society falling down around you. You just can't tell yet. It's well done. I think this is a good time to reconnect to Jonathan's question, which was here somewhere, saying, how do you think this season will end? And he hasn't read the book. He says he thinks the season will end in despair rather than with hopefulness. Offred will probably be sent to the colonies. What do you think? And will the viewers return to season 2 if they don't feel any hope for Offred?
I do agree that it's season 1, so I can't. It's not going to end happily. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it's like no one wants to make just one season of a show usually, unless you're the Get Down. You don't want to make. Well, you do want to make more than one season, but Netflix is like, nope.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. I feel like yes, it's going to end in something with despair, but there has to be. I do agree with what he's saying. There has to be some weird glimmer of hope. Like, even if it's something where Offred gets sent away or something, there would have to be, like, that moment of, like, you see, like, Luke and his like, Canadian army, like, with binoculars, like, looking at her or something. Yeah. It's like, let's move in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's possible. I think it'll end downwards as well. I think, we have time now for the last 3 episodes to build a bit of positivity and actually maybe find out what Mayday is and start making a plan with that. And then it can all go wrong. I don't think she'll be sent to the colonies because I think the commander and Mrs. Waterford will still be very much involved in season 2. But I think that would be interesting though. I think we're gonna return to this because we're definitely watching more of this. Sometimes we're like, are we gonna watch this? We're definitely watching. So please do comment your opinions, and we'll include them in our next podcast. You can also send them, as I mentioned, to showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com and comment on showswhatyouknow.com, our website, which has all the audio podcasts.
Yes. And also you can find more from Jacob at awesomepedia.org. He's got all kinds of great stuff. He's got music, he's got podcasts, he's got videos. Make sure you check it out.
Absolutely. And of course, jimandthem.com for all of Jim's podcasts. There's a fair few hours there, let's say. And it's great. It's the way we met. It's why I came to know Jim. He's a hilarious mastermind, and you should all get to know him. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
We are Shows What You Know. We'll always watch TV. And if you think we can't, we'll watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jacob from Sweden.